It's funny, we have these lanes in America. I've had people say, so are you an actor or just a voice actor? Are you a theater actor? Or are you a film actor? Actors are actors. And whatever the media that you're working in, it's kind of secondary. You're an actor. Oh, you're an actor and you're narrating this audiobook. Great. Oh, you're an actor and you're on this film. Terrific. Whenever anybody comes to me and they're like, I have a good voice and I like to read, I don't narrate. It's like, well, okay. The thing I always suggest is do a couple of plays, take acting classes, learn how to dance with text, and then start doing workshops about narration specifically. But, before you learn how to work this thing, learn how to work.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Carey Kight. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Episode 178 features renowned actor, performer, and one of the most recognizable audiobook narrators working today, Ray Porter. If you've listened to Jack Carr's Terminalist series, The Fourth Option, or Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, you know Ray's voice. In this conversation, we talk about what it actually takes to bring a book to life behind the mic. Preparation, performance, pressure, and the discipline of serving the story without getting in its way.
Well, this is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by Go Pills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
The software must have updated since I last used this because the interface is different on my end than it was before. I mean, listen, I've got the red recording going and I've got the 100, so I think we're good. So, yeah,
Let's assume we're all right.
We can assume we're all right. And if nothing else, we'll just have a fun conversation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon from the great state of Ohio for me. Good afternoon from the great state of California. Ray Porter, welcome to Veteran Made.
It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Honestly, this is very cool. A big fan of your work, obviously a big fan of Jack's work as well. So I'll kind of start off the bat and ask you about The Fourth Option. I mean, this is your first, your 8th book with Jack, but the first outside of the Terminalist series for him and for you, right?
Yeah, it's now I've done 2 of his nonfiction ones, Beirut, and but this is the start of a whole new series and a whole new character, whole new sandbox, if you will. And it's kind of, Jack has said in interviews and things like that he was inspired by the old Have Gun Will Travel TV series, It's a really, really great book. It's very, very different in a lot of ways. There's still sort of the loneliness, that's present in the James Reese books. And yet this is a totally different guy. And the story is wonderful, really, really fun. And everything that fans of Jack Carr have come to expect is definitely there in this one. So.
Yeah, it really is. I've read it and I am, let me check my Spotify here. I'm 14 tracks in, listening to you.
Oh, cool.
So it's been really fun to have read it. And then I talked to Jack about it and then now go back and listen to it through your voice. How do you approach the differences, right? Like knowing that you're reading for an author that you have worked with
Yes.
significantly, obviously across fiction and nonfiction. So it's not the same world. It's not this. This isn't the the MCU or the DCU or anything like that. But it is sort of still his voice and his style, right, and his approach, but different characters. But knowing that you just kind of come into these cold, right, and perform them and read them on the first try. Can you take us a little bit into your process?
Sure. And I mean, I should speak about that a little bit. I guess I've become kind of notorious for my work process, but I found early in my career that, I got started narrating and once I was like 5 books in, I'm like, well, this is kind of a going concern. I guess I should figure out what I'm supposed to actually be doing. So I started, looking at other narrators and asking other narrators what their process was. And many of them, not all of them, would talk about, reading through the book at least a couple of times and like marking everything out and doing all that. So I did that. And the book, my performance of the book sucked. It was terrible. And the producer, who I kind of credit with being the reason why I have a career, contacted me and said, what did you do differently this time? And I told him, and he said, maybe that's not right for you. And boy, was that the understatement of the year. And so the next book I just tried to read cold, and I make a lot of mistakes and I have to go back, but there's a rewind button. So I can go back and fix things as needed. For me, coming to every book, whether I know the author or not, coming to it with fresh eyes every time and letting the book talk, to me, is the most immediate way of bringing it to the listener. My philosophy about narration is very much, the author and the listener, I'm just introducing them and I hope they'll be friends. So the more that I'm out of the way, the less that I have like worked it and controlled it and all of that, I think the better. And so a quick path to that is, I sort of let the book talk to me the first time. And so when it's happening to me in the recording, it's also happening to you as you're listening to it. And that to me is much more immediate. It's like live theater or like live radio, and I like that because it makes the book, it puts the light on the book as opposed to on me, if that makes sense. So while I'm very familiar with Jack's writing and while I'm very familiar with, sort of things he's going to do, and maybe I can say like, oh, maybe in the next chapter, this is going to happen kind of thing, just because I know Jack, I'm really approaching these books as if it's the first time that I've ever read any of his stuff, first time I've ever read anything like this, and I'm just letting the book lead everything.
I want to come back to that, but I want to hear about this producer and that interaction. So as a creative performer, as an actor, as a narrator,
yes,
when you receive a note like that, how do you process that, right? Like I would imagine that there's probably a combination of negative and positive feelings, right? Negative being, oh no, somebody has a note and something didn't go well, but positive in the sense of like, well, they know that I can do this, or they wouldn't be asking me this question. But like, take us back to that moment. How did it feel?
That's actually very astute. As an actor, you get accustomed to being given notes, by a director or whatever, of like, that's maybe not the best choice for you. Maybe try something, and you get your ego out of the way pretty quickly, because you realize that you both want what is best for the book or the play or the film or whatever you're doing. And so you hit shift and rotate your adaptability, I was really close with a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret. And he always said, you got to have a plan. Otherwise you can't deviate.
Right.
And so, you set out with the best of intentions with all the energy you can. And then you're told, maybe try something else. Well, you better have something else ready. And so my ego's really out of the way with that kind of thing. It's like, oh, great. Okay, let me try this. And it was a good note and it worked. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's a little bit different than acting, right? When you're acting, you have the opportunity to try different choices, right? If you're on stage, not so much. If you're in front of the camera, right, you have multiple setups, multiple opportunities to try different choices for the director and the editor to use. And so your training as an actor informs your performance and your ability to narrate. But you can't really make too many different choices scene to scene, right, or chapter to chapter. So like,
Well,
how do you use the? Well, go ahead.
obviously for continuity's sake, you want to keep the characters, who they are through the book and that kind of thing. When you're on a set and a director comes over and goes, okay, that's great, we got a couple of takes that are good, I want you to try this, and you do something different and all of that. That's so there's variety. The same is true in theater, where through the rehearsal process, which can be a month or more, you're there to try different things. The nice thing about my home studio here, which I know looks really glamorous, um, is I have a pause button, I have a stop button, I have a rewind button. And if something's not right, if it doesn't feel right, I go back and I adjust and I fix it until it does feel right for the book. So
yeah. So it might get to a spot where you get to, is it like, do you get a few chapters down the line, several chapters down the line, and realize I got to go back? Like how much? Because I would imagine that there could be too much freedom there, right? Where you
Right.
didn't have choice fatigue.
Well, it doesn't happen often, but yeah, there's been times where I'm like, boy, was I wrong about this character. Now, famously, there was a book I did not by Jack. There was a book I did by another author many years ago, another military thriller, where the first sergeant, I'm reading like what the first sergeant says and what they say about the first sergeant. And that helped me kind of pick a character or a voice. And that was all well and good until the author decided to be clever. And in like the last 3 chapters of the book, let us know that the first sergeant was in fact a woman from another and I'm hosed. I got to go back and redo all of those lines because the author did not let us, the reader or me, know that. Which I always kind of felt like was a dirty trick. I mean, if I was just sat in my chair reading the book, not narrating it, and I'm introduced to this character, I'm going to begin to imagine someone, right? Based on what the writer has said about them. So if they do a bait and switch towards the end, unless it's a device of the book that like, ooh, the villain was always this guy. But if it's just a character, why would you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
I immediately, when you said that, I immediately thought of Ace Ventura. It's like Finkel is Einhorn, Einhorn is Finkel.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually had never really thought about it before. Right. But if you're trying to give us the same experience that you're having,
yes,
and then we're also having the same experience that you're having, right? I actually have not, I know there's a huge, debate about whether or not listening to an audiobook counts as reading. I'm somebody who wants people to consume more books. So however we do it, the better.
There's no debate. It's been neurologically proven. It is exactly the same as reading.
Yeah. Well, I was doing yard work yesterday, listening to you read this. And I'm like, well, this is great because I need this yard work to get done. I also would like to be reading. So I'm killing 2 birds here. And this is
you can do both things. You can do both things. I think anybody who really comes down on the side of that doesn't count as reading, they should be dressed like they're a school marm in Little House on the Prairie. It's like, no, that's an antiquated thing. It's how you get, and the amount of letters I get from people, look how old I am, the amount of emails and like things on social media that I get where people will say, you introduced my husband to reading again. He hasn't read in 20 years and now he's voraciously going through all these books. People who have, situations with their vision or dyslexia or they're learning English. I've had many people tell me that they'll buy the book and listen to the audiobook and it helps them learn English. It's wonderful,
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's like we read to our kids, right? Like I've got a 6-year-old, so she's learning to read. I am now having to get ready to mourn and let go of the fact that the thing of me reading to her is, I mean, it's not coming, she can't read that well yet. She's only a kindergartner getting ready to go into 1st grade. But at some point here, if she picks up reading the way that my wife and I picked up reading, she's just going to be reading on her own. And like those moments just, are not there anymore.
It's so funny. My son is 18 now and he's in college, and there's so many books written and so many advice columns on about like what to do when you have a baby. Nobody writes about what to do when you have to let that kid go, when you have to give that kid the keys and watch them drive away. And it happens in small ways like that with reading and that sort of thing. Now, my son, I would read to him at night to go to bed. And I can remember this happened twice. A little hand reaching out and patting me on the arm. Daddy, don't do the voices. What? Don't do the voices. What do you mean? The characters? Yeah, don't do that.
Oh
What do you
no.
just read it? Do you know
Yeah.
people pay money to hear me do the voices? Don't.
Doing the job right now. You're just being my dad. You're like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's funny. I read these children's books to my daughter. The Kate D. Camillo is the author.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a whole little world that she's created there on Decawoo Drive, and I think it's Alabama or somewhere in the South. And
Yeah.
I tried to read it just with my normal California Midwestern voice, and it just wasn't quite working for me. So I just started putting a Southern twang on it. And my daughter loves it. And then now she wants to practice the accent. I'm like, we got to be a little bit careful here
That's
because,
funny. Well, you've seen then what I experience as a narrator, where sometimes the text of the book
Mhm.
tells you how to speak.
Yes.
It didn't feel right until you read it in that voice, if you will, and then the text was. That's exactly what it is to narrate in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a sign of a great author, right? So like, that's where you're really working with the author. And I would imagine, obviously would never ask you to name any, but like, I would imagine that you read some and you're like, this, I'm working a little bit harder here, right? Because this is not to me the way that other texts do.
Well, there's always that happens. Sure, there's books that are either just not for me or I don't particularly jibe with. But I've been given the job and I said yes to it, and so I have to do my absolute best to make it the best that I possibly can. Whether I like it or not has nothing to do with the equation. At the end of the day, you're like, oh God, but that's just privately. It doesn't matter. The success of the mission, if you will, depends on me giving everything that I have, whether I like it or not,
Right.
So
What kind of metrics do you use? How do you approach? Obviously, I'm sure that you get offers, but then you field the offers. And how do you look at one and say, wow, this one like really is for me. This is amazing. I'm excited. Or, hey, this one might not be for me.
Well, there's been, there's quite a few authors that I work with repeatedly. And so I know that if I get a Jack Carr book coming, A, I want to do it because he's my friend. And B, I know that it's going to be good. With newer authors, I'll get an idea of more or less what the book is about and where it is. And I do try to get at least a few pages sent to me so I can kind of see if it's going to work. And there's been a couple of books where I have said, I love the book, but it's absolutely not for me to narrate. You need to have a different kind of narrator for this. That doesn't happen often, but it has happened a couple of times. And I just try to see if I'm going to be able to make that introduction to the listener effectively, with the book. So I don't like sit and pre-read the entire thing, but you get a pretty good idea pretty quickly as to whether it's going to be a good fit or not. And then other times I'll just say, yes, I'll take it. It comes as an offer. Do you have room in your schedule? Yes, I do. And they send you a book and you get it. And there's been some marvelous surprises with that. I have a first-time author who's put out this thing and it's an incredible book, and that's the beginning of their career. And there's some others where it's like, boy, I should not have said yes to this, but I did. So I have to do it.
Yeah. When you get those initial pages, do you go in the booth, record, and listen back?
No, I literally just read them. And I just, it's a different part of your head when you're being a narrator and you're looking at the text in a slightly different way than if you were just opening a book on a hammock somewhere and reading. But yeah, I can get the spidey sense tingles, and I know if it's going to be a good fit.
Yeah. Your training as a stage actor, as a Shakespearean actor, and then you've obviously acted in film and television. You've done video games, you've done mocap, right? You've done all of these different things.
Yes.
How do you think about separation of skill sets versus integration of skill sets? Do you approach these? I mean, obviously from a technical perspective, you approach it differently, but from a creative and sort of emotional, spiritual sense, do you approach them any differently?
It's funny. It's, it really does come down to, at the end of it, for me anyway, everything gets boiled down to its storytelling. So whether I'm I worked with a theatrical combat group for a long time. So like lots of sword fighting and that sort of thing. Well, you're telling a story. Narrating audiobooks, you're telling a story, doing a play, if I'm playing a character in a TV show or in a movie or whatever, it's the same thing. It comes down to that. It's just what tools do you bring to the job? Do you know?
Yeah.
You try to, and I think experience shows you the appropriate tools to bring to the job. It's like today we're working on an Alfa Romeo transmission. Don't bring a sledgehammer.
Right.
You just, you learn what's going to be, it's technique. It's what's going to be the most appropriate thing that's going to help me most effectively tell the story.
Well, there's a ton of value, right, in different experiences. When I first got into the industry out in Los Angeles, I was the first AD. That was the first.
Oh yeah.
I got thrown into the fire as a first AD.
Hard job.
Yeah, I mean, I applied to be the key PA in the AD department. The second quit, the second quit, and the first quit. So I was.
You were like Speaker of the House after everybody had been assassinated. Oh my goodness.
Fresh out of the military, then fresh out of film school, and I have a screenwriting degree. I don't even have a production degree. And
wow.
the UPM and the EPs and the director looked at me. They're like, "Can you do this?" And I looked around. I'm like, "Guys, we don't have another choice because you're not paying me to do this, and the other guys quit. So this is my first time. Like, we're going to figure this out." But what I benefited tremendously from, which helped me as a producer, down the line, was I now understand how every department works, what every department needs, what a director's looking for, what a DP's looking for, what hair and makeup, wardrobe, G&E, everybody, right? Actors, right? I mean, I had to be a second AD and a first AD. So I'm really understanding what actors do to prepare on the day and perform on the day and all of these different things. And having that skill set that sat kind of in the middle of everybody and then doing a little bit of everything has like really informed my ability to perform in a more specific role as I progressed in my career. So I would imagine that you jumping around to these different outputs creatively, you kind of bring what works and dispense with what doesn't and jump in.
Well, diversity of experience only is a good thing.
Right.
I mean, you learn. I try to learn about as much as I can about as much as I can. Because it all, in the end, comes down to the more you understand these things, the better you're able to kind of get through. So, I know what it's like to do really weird, arcane things that have nothing to do with acting, but somehow it all kind of feeds in. And I think it's mindset, too. It's the willingness to, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out right now. You get a certain fluidity and a certain elasticity to your thinking and your procedure. And so the more diverse your experience is, the better it's going to be, whatever final channel you end up in, I think.
I know. I completely agree. How much of do you view narration as acting at all?
Yes, I do. And it's funny. We have these lanes in America. I've had people say, so are you an actor or just a voice actor? And there's funny little lanes like, are you a theater actor? Are you a film actor? Are you, this. One thing I learned from working in the UK is that actors are actors, and whatever the media that you're working in, it's kind of secondary. You're an actor. Oh, you're an actor and you're narrating this audiobook. Great. Oh, you're an actor and you're on this film. Terrific. Oh, you're doing this play. There are no sort of lanes, if you will, like there are here. And yes, I do believe audiobook narration is acting. And whenever anybody comes to me and they're like, I have a good voice and I like to read, I don't narrate. It's like, well, okay. The thing I always suggest is do a couple of plays, take acting classes, learn how to dance with text, and then start doing workshops about narration specifically. But, before you learn how to work this thing, learn how to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's important. But yes, it is acting, I believe. Very much so.
I mean, that's I wasn't asking you in a leading way because that's what my experience
no.
To it. It's really it's funny. So I recommended The Terminal List to my brother, my older brother, several years ago now at this point. And he was in the middle of a cross-country move, and he was like, well, the only way I can the only way I can read this is if I listen to it. And so he listened to the first one, The Terminal List,
right.
Across the country. And he called me, he's like, dude, first of all, that book is incredible. Second of all, have you listened to it? And I said, no, I've just read it. He goes, you've got to listen to it. It's amazing. He's like, just the experience was so rich. And he was somebody who had never listened to read either. And so I love to read. I love the physical copy. I love the paper.
I do too.
I love,
Yeah.
Jack, I got the PDF of the fourth option, but I get the physical copy as well. And now I'm listening to it. And I love to read. But you're definitely somebody who has me now. Like, I'm not going to go read Project Hail Mary I'm not going to go read the physical copy after seeing the movie. I'm now going to listen to you.
Listen to it. Yeah, that's great.
Right.
That's great. I too like to have a physical book. When I read for pleasure, for sure, when I'm off the clock, I do. The thing about, audiobooks are kind of a big ask. I mean, here's one guy sitting alone in a hastily constructed, I don't know what you'd call this, blanket fort in Pasadena, California. And I'm going to take you to, South Africa and Afghanistan and Beirut and do all this stuff. And it's an ask. And it's like going to the theater where it's like, we're all going to sit in this room and believe that it's the Battle of Agincourt or something. So you want to try to give as vast and creative and theatrical an experience as you can, without being theatrical with it. You really want to perform the book as much as you can so that it is engaging. So hopefully people will forget that they're sitting in their truck listening to a guy sitting in a tent telling this vast story.
Yeah.
That's the goal anyway.
I'm just curious from a technical performance standpoint, like, where's that line? You said earlier, right? Like, you don't want to get in the way of the text. And I suppose it is acting, right? Like, where you watch a great actor on film and you're not like, hey, that's that actor. That's that character, right?
That's the goal. That is exactly the goal. I want to kind of, I tell younger narrators, the more that you endeavor to disappear, the more you're going to get noticed. But the more you try to be noticed, the people are going to shut the book off, and then they're not getting the book. They don't want to, they tune out. Don't ask for the attention, earn it.
Oh, that's great. So you've got your studio there. You don't work with a director for these?
I do work at an external studio here in LA. My friend Tim runs a great place, York Recording, and I do work at that studio. And they'll have directors sometimes attendant, although the directors I work with 9 times out of 10, they're just they're sat back. They'll catch me if I've made a mistake or something. But as for like, wow, that was kind of a weird character choice, that comes up very rarely now. It does. But most of the time, yeah, I'm kind of on my own. They trust me on my own. So, yeah.
Is that, I mean, at this point that you're such a seasoned veteran, I can't imagine that's too much pressure. Do you enjoy that aspect of it?
I do like it. It's deceptively hard work, narrating. And I've had several actor friends who've come to me and said they'd like to narrate books. And I'm like, strap in. It's very, very difficult in a weird, different way. Mentally, spiritually, physically, it demands slightly different things than any other form of acting. And I know a lot of people, some famous people too, who've gone in to narrate an audiobook, and by lunch they've tapped out. They're just like, I can't do this. And they have to scramble to find somebody to finish narrating the book. Because you're not only acting, you're also the DP, you're the lighting, you're your art department, your hair and makeup, your special effects. It's huge, and you're thinking about continuity the whole time. So mentally, it's very, very fatiguing.
What specifically? So are you? Because what just flashed into my mind as you were saying that was, how often I will be physically reading pages of a book, and then my mind will wander, and I will realize that I've read 2 pages and I need to go back and start over. I actually didn't retain any of it. Is that what you're like? Is that what you're describing?
You definitely have to have your attention really honed. There's not a lot of time to let your mind wander, since you're, probably wouldn't be good to be daydreaming while you're driving the boat. But you're focusing on a lot of different things. And I guess it's a little like, driving a boat or flying a plane with passengers, where you've got to maintain, control over the vehicle and be aware of the weather and this and so that the person in the back can look out the window, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a responsibility. So, but it can be very difficult. I know a lot of actors who are like, "Oh my God, I didn't think it would be this hard." It's like, yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The authors who record their own, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to go in and record it.
Oh
That'd be
yeah.
fun. And then they're like, that was a lot of time and a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Exactly. I actually had an author say, yeah, they wanted me to try narrating my thing and I worked for 2 days and I hated it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
it. It's tough.
How long do you, what's a working session like for you? Are you doing like 2 good hours, 4 good hours, 5 good hours?
2 good hours. I try to get 2 finished hours every day. Now it can take me 4 or 5 hours to get those 2 finished hours, but I like to have 2 finished hours every day if I can. And there's things like a helicopter will fly overhead, or there's some weather thing or whatever that'll come in. But yeah, try to go for 2 good hours, 2 finished hours a day.
And are you ever narrating multiple books at a time, or is it one at a time?
Sadly, yes, because I schedule like a 5-year-old. I will say yes to stuff, and magically it's all due on the same day. And so I will be juggling. And there have been days where I'll get up and work in the afternoon and then chill for a little bit. And then in the evening, work on the other book and try to get it done. I just came off of a 3-book stack that I had to
Oh,
get
wow.
together. And it was a scramble, but, exhausted. And I'm about to start a new one, but only one right now,
Yeah.
today. So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
So, yes, I would imagine physically that's daunting.
But you're
And
also sat in a chair. So it's tiring, but you're just sat in a chair. So it's
right,
really weird. Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. It's like those days where my daughter would be like, "How was your day?" I'm like, "Man, it was like really busy." She's like, "What'd you do?" I was like, "Well, I stood at this desk and I stared at a screen and I'm really
Mhm.
tired." Well, I did recess and I ran around. I'm like, yeah, it's a different kind of tired. It's a different
Because
kind.
you're 6. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I would imagine it's physically exhausting to do multiple of those. But in terms of like creatively, because you have a voice, right? Like
Mhm.
I actually did. I've listened to Terminalist books. I'm listening to Fourth Option. I put Project Hail Mary on this morning just to kind of get a little bit of an
Yeah,
idea.
that's sensible. Yeah.
You have a voice, like you have a style of this is Ray Porter narrating this
Yeah.
story book, this novel or nonfiction book. But then you're also performing and acting like we were talking about, right? So
Yeah.
physically it's probably exhausting to do multiple. What about juggling different characters and different author voices? Or is that all just part of that same exhausting pot?
It's kind of, yeah, it is kind of all the exhausting pot of making some fatigue stew. It is a little bit that. Um, and yeah, you got kind of the home base voice, right? This, just the narrative, just talking. And then I'm playing these different characters and you want to try to differentiate them as much as you can. Now, when you're talking about a book like Hail Mary or the Bobaverse, where it's protagonist first person,
Hmm?
you know, then I'm going to try to get as neutral as I can and do as close to my own regular voice as I can for that character, because it's kind of the hub of the wheel. And then you're going out on the spokes and doing all these other different things with it. At least that's my approach to it. And it also gives you a grounding. If this character, even if it's the main character who's thinking or talking or whatever, the narrative voice is somehow separate from that. And I try to vocally slightly differentiate so that people know that that's home base, and then they come off, out to the rest of the story.
And you're just, because you come at these cold, you're just
Yeah.
feeling that as you go. You're just,
I kind of am, yeah. Yeah, I kind of am. I mean, there's, a few times where you get thrown a red herring or whatever, where it's like, oh, he's South African. Great. Let me get on YouTube and listen to people speaking in that dialect for a little while and just hone it and get it right, and then come in and do the scene. Yeah, that happens. That happened with Jack's book, actually. Thanks, Jack.
yeah.
um, um, but yeah, it's weird. I mean, having acted with a lot of other people, and I'll tell you, I do prefer that. Acting is a very social pursuit. So when you're on your own and you're playing all these different characters, it can be very troubling sometimes, of how do I make sure that I'm not doing too much with that character?
Right, because when you have a scene partner or multiple scene partners, right?
Sure.
Like it's a living organism, and you guys are, you're going for takes and you're making
Mm-hmm.
choices, conversations about what's working and what's not working, or you see, I get fed these Instagram reels of, I got one this morning of from Succession where the two actors ignored each other completely for the entire day when they were shooting the finale, and then when they came together, sparks were flying, right? Like you don't have that. That's just all in your.
You kind of have to manufacture it, so you're making acting choices based on what that character's choice would be different from anybody else. And so it's a little like, the actor is sitting in front of a table with 12 hats and they're rapidly putting them on and taking them off and being the person, So mentally at the end of the day, you're pretty much ragged out.
Where do you pull from for that? Is that on-set experience that you pull from to manufacture?
A lot of it is on-set experience. A lot of it is, a lot of it does come from having spent so long working in theater, particularly with classical text. It's like, this is what this text wants. This is what this character demands that you do, kind of, and you explore that and try to make the choices you can and try to make them as alive as you can. But it's all about like, that we're going to do this. Great. Okay, here we go. And being, having a sense of duty to the text more than anything else. Like, we're going to do, okay. All right, here we go. And you just do it,
Yeah. I mean, you have a great, just listening to you talk, and check me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like you have a great sort of integrated, balanced approach to, this is a craft and I can bring some choices here, but at the end of the day, this text is objectively saying something, and the sandbox that I'm playing in is this one.
That's very astute. That's absolutely right. I all of the technique that I have and all of the like toys that I have in my toolbox, to bring out at different things are only useful to the point of serving the text and getting out of the way of it so that the listener gets value for money, that they get the whole book, they get what the author is trying to say to them. And it's very much like sitting back and doing whatever the book wants. It's like, you want me to do that? Great. Okay. And you do it.
Gird your loins.
Gird your loins. Exactly.
I love it. Okay. So a little, are you going out a lot right now? You're talking about wanting to get, liking, sometimes being, on set and working with other people socially a little bit.
LA's a little dead right now.
Yeah.
It's been very tough. It's funny. The most film work that I've gotten over the last year has come from audiobooks. I had a couple of voice cameos in Jack's thing, Dark Wolf, obviously Project Hail Mary, things like that. I've taken myself off and gone and done plays because I just think it's it's good training. It's just good to keep the musculature steady, and it always makes the audiobooks better. But as far as like being sent out and like film and TV stuff, there's really nothing happening in LA right now. It's happening elsewhere. Yeah.
Are you doing plays? And when you go to do those plays, are you doing those in California or are you going out?
Actually, I went up to Oregon the last 2 times that I did a play. I actually drove up to Oregon. There's a small theater up there, right near the theater I used to work at. But it's a small company that opened up and it's old friends, and I get to do really interesting work. And it's not for a big house or anything, but it's to go and do the play. And it's always helpful. And whenever I come back, I'm like, okay, good. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do audiobooks again. Keeps me from getting burned out.
Yeah. I missed that. I connected with a woman. She's an actor. She's also a veteran. I was kind of doing a, pre-conversation before having her on the podcast. She just directed a play out in LA. And I was like, oh, you probably don't, but my friend who I knew out in LA, she's done a little bit of theater. She's like, oh, she was the lead in the play. And so then we started, and it just turns out that we have this mutual connection. And then I called my friend, and I was the first AD out in LA, right out of film school, out of the military. And a roommate of mine was an actor. So I would go to acting classes with him.
Oh,
and
cool.
then our friends. And then we would go up to Big Bear or whatever, throw on a camcorder, and we would just do whatever, right? We would do little
Right.
sketches, or we would do little short films. Nothing we were going to, try to produce, overly
But the
produce.
point is you're creating.
We were doing it, and I'm not an act. I mean, I'm not an actor. I have acted, but I miss that. I miss what you're describing. Old
Yeah.
friends in a small environment. We're just working the craft,
Yes.
having fun, and it's for the joy of what it is that you just are creating in the moment,
Absolutely.
instead of trying to, yes, you have a skill set to manufacture, right? What you're describing as you narrate these books, but sometimes it's great to not have to do that, right?
Well, I reached a point of burnout where I was getting a lot of books, one after the other, nonstop. And it became so much routine that I knew that the books were beginning to suffer a little bit, or I was worried that they would begin to suffer, that my reading would somehow fall off. And I found myself irritated with doing the job and all of that. And I was like, right, I gotta sort this out. And very timely, a play kind of dropped in my lap, and I was like, yes, I will go do it. And I did it. And we opened the play. We were in about 4 shows into the run, and I went, okay, I like audiobooks again. I can go back and do them more. It's fine, And it's really important, I think, to do that, to do just what you're talking about, going up to Big Bear and just turning on a camcorder and just creating for the love of it, not an end game. Who's going to buy it? Who's going to see it? How can I advance my career? I'm creating just to create.
Right.
And it's important.
Yeah. But the majority of our audience are military veterans and then service members that are getting ready to transition. And I can speak to that. I've been out of the military for 16, 17 years, got out in 2010. And I joined knowing that I wanted to use the GI Bill, go to film school, sort of, of restart my life from a more secure financial place and a more secure relational place, just to say, I'm going to go study what I want to study, and the GI Bill will pay for it, and I'll work, and I'll kind of work my way through. But I did pretty immediately feel behind. And I still kind of feel that way, right? I'm like 4 years.
So do I, dude. So do I. I still feel behind. It's a natural thing.
Yeah. So how do you, because when you just said, like, you had the self-awareness to say the work is suffering, or it might start to suffer. I don't want that to happen. A lot of people, especially people who've served in the military, right? Hard charging folks, regardless of what we did in the military, have a similar mindset of, I'm going to push through, right? What is it about you, and what would you, I guess, put you on the spot to give some advice or recommend, or just talk through your own approach of, no, I'm going to slow down. I feel behind. I feel like the work might be suffering, but what's better for me in the work is to actually just slow down, take a breath, and work the process that I can, instead of the one that I feel like I should.
Well, first of all, I have to say, my respect for people who are serving or who have served is through the roof. Famously, if I get approached about a project, it's like, if somebody says the word veteran, my next question is how much and how high. That's just my own personal thing. I also, through friends, have an understanding of what gives me this much respect for the job is the understanding of, okay, you're out now. You got your DD-214 and you're done. What now? And you're surrounded by a whole lot of people who don't understand the first thing about what it is. So there's that, and those demands on you. It's funny. I never looked at like breaking away from doing audiobooks for a couple of months to go do a play as relaxing or letting down from pushing. It was, all right, I'm pushing, but I've hit bedrock here and it ain't moving. So I'm going to push a different way. Do you know what I mean? I always say, I'll say I'm a cesarean baby. You can't really tell, except when I leave the house, I go through the window.
Even right.
Yeah, exactly. But you get accustomed to get it done another way. If this way isn't, so for somebody who's coming out or somebody who's been out, if you're hitting a brick wall, try traversing left. Find another way. It's there. And most people don't look for it. But that's what I did when I went to do the play. It's like, I'm not going to do this by just endlessly hammering myself with audiobooks. It's actually going to get worse, and it's going to be diminishing returns. I need to do something lateral. I'm going to go this way and do that and push this way. And so I pushed that way, and I was able to find my way through the wall of audiobooks by doing that, by pushing in a different direction.
Yeah, I like that. I like that mindset. I like that approach. We live in such, we humans have such binary tendencies. We assume it is either all the way or none at all.
Absolutely.
Or stopping. When in reality, you can maybe slow down. And to your point, turn the turn signal on and go left and see what's over there. Or
go right. Don't slow down. Just cut the wheel to the right and see what's down this road you've not been down. Keep your foot on the gas if you want, but just stop trying to make this thing happen that isn't happening. Do something else. Go in a different direction. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I have you here. I would be remiss.
Yes.
Can I ask you a little bit about Darkside? Is that all right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course you can.
So huge. I'm a huge fan of the of the Snyder cut. And there he is. There you are.
Look, it's my resume. Yes.
Yeah. How did that come about? I mean, you have an interesting story, right? You're over in London, and
I'm over in England, and I had known Zach for a couple of years, just socially, and I like Zach and Debbie quite a lot. And for some reason, because I'm never one of those like, "Hi, I do this. I'm an actor." Blah, blah, blah. I'm not real self-promoting. He found out that I narrate audiobooks, and so he reached out to me because he likes to hear the script rather than just sitting and reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going in and I was reading the screenplay to him. And if there were rewrites or whatever, I would read them to him. And then at some point he had me actually record like an audiobook, the script so that he could cut it up and have an audio reference on the days when he was like in the car on the way to set. What are we doing today? And it would be done, Anyway, so I went and we did read throughs, and they actually hired a bunch of American actors who were living in London at the time to come and read this script. And these actors were working hard because they're sitting in the room with the director and the producer and the head writer, and maybe they'd get a role in the movie, and so they were working it. I wasn't. I was there to help a friend. So I was just reading stuff. Anyway, there was one day basically in the hallway at Warner Brothers Leavesden Studios. We'd gotten done and I was getting ready to leave. And he walked over with this like 3D graphic and he's like, "What do you think this guy would sound like?" And I just looked at the picture and I was like, I don't know, probably something a bit like this, and he's like, "Oh, cool." I was like, "Yeah, cool. See you later. See you next week," or whatever. And it was 2 weeks later, someone else entirely came and said, "You're playing Darkside." And I was like, and the whole point is I got the job by not trying for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Darkside not in the drafts that you were reading? So
Darkside was definitely in the screenplay. Darkside was for sure in the screenplay. It was only after Zach left and Joss Whedon took over and made his cuts that Darkside was no longer involved. And I really credit, and I've gotten close. I've been at a Comic-Con where Kevin Smith was, and it wasn't appropriate to go and interrupt him. But I want to thank Kevin Smith personally because he did a podcast where he talked about that there was in fact a Snyder cut of the movie, because fans came out of the Joss Whedon one and were not happy and thought there's more there, and they started making these noises. And Kevin Smith said he knew, and he said, and Darkside was in it, and the audience is like, "Oh," but he's the one who started that fire. So then the speculation started online of, well, who played Darkside in Zach's version? Oh, it had to be Benedict Cumberbatch or James Earl Jones or what. I'm sitting there like, and in fact, when the movie had come out, the Joss Whedon version had come out in 2017, I actually wrote to DC and to Warner Brothers and said, "Hey, I know that I was cut out of the movie, but it would really help my career if I got to say that I did do this, even though it was cut." And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, great." And they're like, "And you're still under an NDA." And I was like, "Okay, I'm shutting up." One night I went to bed. I think I had this back when I was on Twitter, when it was Twitter. I went to bed and I had like 2,500 loyal audiobook listener followers. And I got up the next day and randomly checked it, and I had 25,000 and a full inbox. "Hey, we heard you played Darkside." And I immediately jumped on the phone to DC and to Warner Brothers and said, "I never said anything." They're like, "No, it's cool. We know it wasn't you, but and I never knew. I think it was Zach, but I can't be sure about that." but that started the whole thing. But it still wasn't going to be produced. It was just that, but the rumor mill started in earnest. And, finally, when Zach announced that HBO Max was going to show his cut of it, I immediately texted him. I was like, thank you so much, man. I'm so happy for you. This is wonderful. Can I please come out of the closet and say that I was Darkseid now? And I did. And all the fans were like, welcome. The fans are the reason why this exists. And their kindness was absolutely astonishing. And that opened me up to the world of going to Comic-Cons and doing all that stuff. And then, I got to see it in IMAX and I got to hear my voice and all of that, which was crazy. But the real the final sort of thing that happened was there was a viewing party a year after the thing showed on HBO Max at a movie theater in Universal. And all the fans came and all the cast came and Zach was there and I was there and all that. And I'm sitting in the movie theater. And when Darkseid first comes on, the audience started clapping. And I actually got emotional at that moment, where it was because it was talk about a roller coaster ride. I'm in the movie, then I'm not. Then I am, then I'm, it was crazy. And there was a big personal event that happened at that time too. So it was fraught. And in the end, it came out, the fans were unbelievably kind, wonderful. I still get to go to Comic-Cons occasionally, which is just great. And great experience.
I'm glad. As a fan, I'm glad the movie came out. But for all of that, I'm glad for you that it came out. Did you get to do any pickups or anything like that? Did you have to go in?
Yeah, it's funny because when it was going to be out on HBO Max, I mean, the process of doing that character, it started. We were flown to LA. Me and Kieran Hines and Peter Guinness were flown to LA to shoot mocap stuff. So like that landing and then swinging the thing into the anti-life and scooping up the earth. That was me in mocap. All the cool fighting stuff was done by someone else. But so Kieran Hines and me and Peter Guinness, British actor, wonderful British actor, are standing around in our black lycra suits. And I was like, we look like we're the HR department for ninjas. And we did the mocap. And then like months later, I went in and I recorded some other lines. And then a couple of months went by and I recorded some more lines and that sort of thing. And then years go by, obviously. The movie comes out. Right before the HBO Max release, Zach called me and he goes, hey, can you record this line just at your home studio? Just this mic right here, actually. And just hold the phone up and video yourself so they can CGI around your mouth and just say this line. I'm like, great, no problem. So I did. So in the movie, the last Darkseid speech, anti-life is found to sod, and we will stop at nothing to possess it. Ready the armada, we will use the old ways. Between we will stop at nothing to possess it and ready the armada is 5 years.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's really cool.
So basically, I was sat here in my studio going, ready to the armada, we will use the old ways. Over and over and over and over again. And then that got put in.
You're holding up a phone and they're able to do that. I mean, the technology is insane.
The technology is astonishing now. Even when we were doing the mocap, I was expecting the lycra suit with the little dots. Yeah. No, it's changed, and it's crazy because, I mean, I've done stuff that has involved CGI and mocap over the years, and watching the technology exponentially evolve has been nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, to button it, right? Like I appreciate you sharing that story. And it's interesting because as you at the beginning of it, you were saying like, listen, I'm just helping out a friend. I didn't even tell him this is what I do, but I just did this as a service to be helpful. And then we're sitting around doing this table read and you're observing other actors who are,
rightly trying to get the job. Yeah.
No disrespect, right? They're attempting to listen.
Absolutely.
Anybody who's ever worked in entertainment or in Hollywood, take your chance. Like whatever
your chance. Exactly.
So no disrespect at all, but you have a different perspective, right? One where you're just like, I'm here, very workmanlike, right? I'm here to help a friend, and this is an amazing experience. And then all of a sudden, it does in fact lead to something really cool, and then that really cool thing gets taken away from you. Like that roller coaster ride has got to be. I don't. That's a pretty unique one.
It was psychologically trying. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a tough time, and like I said, I had personal upheaval happening at the same time. So, it was a lot. There was a lot of emotions around all that. But yeah, I've always kind of taken a workmanlike approach to stuff. I think I harbor secret guilt that I'm not still doing construction. I used to do construction. I put roofs on houses and stuff like this, and prancing around in clothes that aren't mine and saying words that's not work, in my mind. I come
I
from Indiana, so there's that real just like you're not really working. It's like I really, really am, but in my mind, I have this. So it's been to my detriment at times where I don't act like, I don't know, maybe I don't own stuff. Like I'm on the red carpet for Project Hail Mary in London. And they're big fans of the audiobook and stuff like that. And I was there with my partner, and she's like, you need to see this. You need to recognize what this is. You have to notice this and know that you worked in such a way to earn this.
Mm-hmm.
Have this, you know. I mean, it's not like it's imposter syndrome, really, although I have massive imposter syndrome. But it's this weird, like, I don't ever want to be angling for something or let my ambition lead. I just want to let the work lead.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I can relate to that. Obviously, being from the Midwest as well. I'm in Ohio, just right down the street
Yeah.
from Indiana, and I always, when I got out of the military and I was going to film school, I was waiting tables at PF Chang's, excuse
Okay.
me, and I always joke, like, they actually have a pretty rigorous, at least back when I worked there, they had a pretty rigorous training schedule, and I had never really waited tables before, but I've loaded bombs on fighter jets, so I'm pretty sure I can.
You can probably handle these short ribs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of went through the 5-day, 2-day, 2 shifts a day training schedule, and there was one other veteran who had been working there for a couple of years already, and so I get onto the floor like my first night, and it's a Friday night, and everybody is freaking out.
Yeah.
And the server's like, "Oh my gosh, this woman at table 72, I missed the appetizer, and she needs another iced tea." Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, "Yeah, we're not getting shot at, so just get her the iced tea and rush the egg rolls. Like, I think we're probably fine. I know I just started, but it's not that big of a deal." And I looked at the other
mortar rounds coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey man, is it always like this?" And he just looks at me and goes, "Yeah, it's pretty funny, isn't it?" And he just takes his tray out and just kind of walks out. And I feel right now I'll be on set or I'll be working, it's all remote now, so it's Zooms with executives and we're pitching. I work in
Sure.
the advertising side of production now, so commercials and branded content and things like that.
Very cool.
So it's awesome. I love it. And so I'll be talking to people and like, "Oh man, the CEO is joining the call." And I'm like, "Guys, not a big deal. He's just a person, or she's just a person. It's not a big deal. I've briefed 4-star generals on a target package for the F-15. Like, we're good. Like, not a big deal. Let's just do the pre-pro book. No big deal." And I always remind my colleagues, it's a long-winded way of saying I agree with you. It's part imposter syndrome. It's definitely part humility. It's real. But then there's this other third thing that's kind of nebulous. It's like, it is kind of, I work really hard at this, but it is really silly that this is what I get to do for a living. And there are people
that gives you a certain level of cool to the approach, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I never had the privilege of serving. Obviously, massive respect for those who have, but I've lived through what's the worst thing that can happen probably 8 times in my life. And so when I'm dealing with stuff like this, it's like, you're going to panic about this? No,
Right.
this is okay. This is, fine. The other deal is I did a fascinating production of Shakespeare's Henry IV here in LA with Tom Hanks playing Falstaff. Tom and I got on really, really well, and we have a birthday. We share a birthday, and so we'll send each other birthday greetings and stuff. And he's nicer than you imagine he is. He's a great, great guy. But I never asked him for anything. I never asked him for a selfie. I never asked him for something to like further the career. We talked about old cars. We talked about the space program. We talked about different stuff and had a good time. And I wasn't asking anything of him. At the same time that we're doing that, the whole crew of that play was veterans living at the domiciliary in West LA. Now, these are guys who got out and couldn't put things together and ended up on the street with a variety of addictions. And they end up at the domiciliary and they're getting clean and they're learning stuff. And so, cut to basically, I'm running off stage with a rip in my costume, and the person in charge of fixing it is a 3-tour veteran of Iraq. right? So their level of stress is going to be a little bit different than ours. Amazing, amazing people, men and women, just unbelievable. I had a conversation with this kid, and he was young guy, and he had done 2 tours. I think he was combat, for sure, Army. And we were talking about this and that, and I made a reference to, you know, we get all stressed out and we get all freaked out, and you guys must just be standing, looking at us, getting stressed out and just laughing, you know? And he goes, "No, not really, no." And I said, what are you talking about? He said, "This destroyed me. I had to like go sit down for a little bit." He said, you know, because I said, "I feel like an idiot. I mean, we're a bunch of actors and we're prancing around in front of a bunch of warriors, you know?" And he said, "You are warriors against disbelief." And I had to cry a little bit about that. I went and sat down in a chair and cried for a little bit about that. But that perspective, that ability to see past your own nose, I believe is golden. And anytime people come to me about, you know, wanting to be an actor, wanting to be a narrator, whatever, I'm like, have some experience in your life that has nothing to do with this work, because the perspective is vital. And it comes down to things as easy as, well, nobody is shooting at us, but it also allows you to think in a geometric way and work a problem in a way that maybe nobody else did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's about having a full life too, right? Like here on the other side of it, the other side of service, it's like I was joking earlier, like I stand at this desk and I look into these squares and I make treatments, production books, and I brief people, and then we go on set and we shoot. But really at the end of the day, like that full life of I'm done at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm with my kids.
Correct.
Like, that's it.
Exactly.
And I try, my wife and I were business partners, so we do end up talking about work sometimes, right, into dinner or whatever. But
sure,
we try to be really good about just like our time with our daughters, and we got to make up softball game tonight with the 6-year-old, and I'm going to be here with the 10-month-old, and we're just gonna be hanging out. I'm going to shut this thing, and I'm just going to be with her, and I'm going to feed her and bathe her and put her to bed and just enjoy that and not be the point, I'm rambling, but the point is there was a time coming out of service where I used to dream about being this busy. I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm going to shut the computer and I'm going to be busy again tomorrow morning. But for the rest of the evening, I'm going to be there doing that stuff, or outside, or playing catch.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't grow up in a well-off household. You know, there's a whole lot of people who are actors because they get to be, because mommy and daddy invested well. And there's a few of us who have to be or we don't eat. Right. And I know what that is. And so the fact that I have kept the wolf away from the door since college by just doing this, that's gravy. That's marvelous. And I don't get that worked up about a lot of stuff because of it, because I know the trade-off.
Yeah.
And perspective is a vitally important thing to have, I think.
Yeah.
And you get to do this. You get to stand at your desk and then you get to go read to your child.
That's it. It's a privilege. It is a privilege and it is a gift. And I try not to take it for granted.
No. And you get to mow the lawn while I tell you stories in your ear. Hey,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Ray, that's a hell of a place to end it. I really, really appreciate the quick turn recording of this episode. I'm going to send this live a week from today. So be in touch on social and get it out there and all that stuff.
Good.
Where could folks find you, your work? Where do you want to?
I'm on Instagram. I think it's the.ray.porter. I'm on TikTok, The Real Ray Porter. It's all variations of the same thing, but I'm around. And obviously, if you are curious about any of the books I've done, if you go to Audible and in the search bar, just type in my name, it'll list all of the books that I've narrated, and you can listen to samples and go from there. And, I'm around. Sometimes I pop up on your TV set. Occasionally.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to finish the listen through the fourth option. And then, we saw Project Hail Mary. I'd never read it. I had heard of it, but I had never read it. So I'm like, that's the next one.
I love the movie. Yeah. So. I love the movie. And I had a cameo in that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in there. I'm going to see Jack tomorrow, actually. He's on his book tour and he's coming to LA. So I'll see him tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell him I said hello. Ray,
I sure will.
appreciate you, appreciate your work, appreciate your time. We'll do this again sometime.
What an absolute privilege. Thank you, man.
Cheers, brother.